are literally shaping the planet.
Purpose is the only pathway to a regenerative future.
We have a choice to stay with the status quo or to change.
What is the point of trying to be just resilient when we can actually innovate?
First of all, thank you so much. Literally today, I came with one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to 100% shift your mindset and 100% shift your paradigm. That is, if I can do that, then our 30 minutes has not been in vain. So what I want to focus in on is what I think is the core to our professional success, and that is personal development fuels our professional growth. Personal development fuels our professional growth. And the truth is, personal growth is something that we have to focus in on daily. So many of us, especially us high performers, high achievers, those of us who are driven, those of us who know how to go after what we want, there's this mindset that if I just work hard every day, then by osmosis, who I am as a person, where I am with my mental health, my mental awareness is going to automatically grow and develop as well. And the reality is that's not the case. We have to be intentional. I'm very honored that my dear friend and mentor, John Maxwell, who is the #1 leadership expert in the world, he has always focused also on the power of personal development, to the extent that last year, his New York Times bestseller, Leadership, he actually featured an excerpt from my book, Exponential Living, in his book. And this year, his book, The Leader's Greatest Return, he actually interviewed me to be a part of that book and to continue to talk about the power of personal development, because what John knows as the #1 leadership expert in the world, and what I truly know, is that personal development is leadership. Personal development is leadership. And that's so critical for all of us in the high pace of what we do and how we do it to fully grasp. So I want to just take a minute and just get a little nostalgia with you guys. I back in the 90s, I was responsible for the marketing of some of the biggest artists in the world. Zach alluded to some of them: Tony Braxton, TLC, Outkast. But also, as he alluded to, I was responsible for the marketing of this unknown teenager. Now, at this time, he was actually going through, his voice was changing, he had acne. And the reality is that many of the label weren't really supportive of him. But as Zach alluded to, that unknown teenager that I used to work with is Usher. Now, right before Usher released his breakout record, You Make Me Want to Leave the One I'm With and Start a New, yeah. Okay, I know, yeah, y'all know that song, right? You know that's okay. Yeah, so right before Usher released his breakout record, I knew that it was time for me to resign and start my own business. But I also knew that I could never work with Usher. I knew that he needed my friendship more than he would ever need my marketing expertise. He was a teenager. There was so much going on in the industry. But I also knew he wasn't going to really understand why I couldn't work with him, just because of all the trials and tribulations he had gone through as an artist and people really not being there for him. So as I sat in my office and I'm holding his hand and I'm telling him, I'm like, yes, like it's time for me to resign and it's time for me to start my own business. And he jumped up excited. Yes, Sheri, yes. Now you can work with me exclusively. But I had to share with him that I wasn't able to work with him. And in that place, let me ask you, have any of you ever had to make a decision that you knew was going to cost you money, opportunity, and career advancement? Like if you have, just put in the chat box. That's me. That's me. Yeah, that's me. Let me tell you, people thought I was crazy not to work with Usher. And when I say people, I mean me. But I knew that was the right decision. And what I learned from that decision is that being more committed to what was going to give me a full life was more important than what was going to give me this temporary career. See, what I learned is what that great and wise philosopher Oprah, every month she says in her magazine, what I know for sure is that there's going to be times in our lives that we're going to have to determine, what will you give up to go up? What will you give up to go up? And that is so important here in this age of COVID, because now we've had to really by force give up so many realities, so many simple realities, where we could go, how we could be when we get there. But the truth of the matter is, what we really need to focus on, and what hopefully this place and space of total uncertainty will help you hone in on, is that it is critical that we stop spending 100% of our time on 10% of who we are. Let me say that again. We have to stop spending 100% of our time on 10% of who we are and expecting 100% of our fulfillment. And what I realized when I was working at LaFace Records, what I've realized 17 years as an entrepreneur, is that I could not no longer just have a great career and not a great life. Both of them could coexist. And so what I discovered is what I call exponential living, which is a lifestyle of pursuing peace, choosing clarity, and living courageously. And how we bridge that gap between the 100% and the 10% are these 9 principles. And these principles that I call the principles of exponential living. And with respect to our time, today I want to focus in on the first principle that's highlighted in my book. And I go through all 9 of the principles, and you can actually get an autographed copy at piecesthenewsuccess.com. And it's sold anywhere where books or ebooks are sold. That's the full breakdown of the 9. But today, focusing in on that very first principle, live in your power. Live in your power. And there's 5 keys that allows us to do that. The first key to living in your power is your perspective. Your perspective. What is your vision? What is your vision? What are you really locked in on? One of the key things about perspective is that we all have dreams, we have goals, things that we're pursuing. The challenge is we don't always see the steps on how we get there. I love what Steve Harvey. I worked with Steve Harvey. I spoke on many stages with him. He's brought me in to speak. And one of the things he said is that, he at one point was $20 million in debt with the IRS. $20 million. And we all know, I'm an entrepreneur, many entrepreneurs as a part of the Shadow Summit. $20 million in debt is different than just credit card debt. I mean, that interest and those penalties are accruing by the minute. But he had a vision. He had a vision that he was going to be a multimedia mogul, because what he was able to really lock in on is not the limitations of his reality, but he focused in on, what does this make possible? What does this make possible? And that is even more prevalent in this day and age of COVID as a reality we're dealing with, the social injustice that's going on. There's so many realities right now. There's so much uncertainty, business-wise, personal-wise, that it's every day there's another reality or challenge, especially as entrepreneurs, and especially in technology, especially in everyday life, that we have to lock in on what does this make possible? And so for the first key to living your power, when we really focus in on our perspective, our vision, even in the midst of uncertainty, your vision has to be, what does this make possible? So when we look at our perspective, this is all about shifting our view and bringing clarity to our vision. What do you really want out of life? And one of the key things that we have to do is we have to stop saying, I don't know. That's one of the first things so many times when people talk about what they want to accomplish, where are they in their life? What do they want personally? What do they want professionally? They'll focus in on these 3 words, I don't know, which mitigates and eliminates what you do know. So the first key to living in your power is your perspective, and really answering the question, what do you really want out of life? Not just what you want out of your career, but what do you really want out of your life? And the second key to living in your power is ownership. Ownership. What are you focused on? I'm gonna share a story. In December 2014, I literally did the most courageous thing I've ever done in my life, or crazy, either courageous or crazy, depending on who you ask. But I literally eliminated 80% of everything off my to-do list. Now, it was out of desperation, because up until that point, my book, Exponential Living, I had literally been working on the book proposal, for 7 years. And for what a book proposal is, basically, guys, is a glorified outline. That's truly what a book proposal is. 7 years. And so the second week of December, out of desperation, I cleared 80% of everything off my to-do list. The only thing I left was secure my publishing deal, increase my speaking engagements, and lose 25 pounds. That's it. If items on my to-do list didn't directly or indirectly impact those three things, I removed them. Now, here my timeline. The second week of January, I sent my revised book proposal to my agents. And literally in 15 minutes, they called me back and said, "Oh my God, Sheri, you found your voice." And 4 weeks later, the second week of February, I had multiple offers from top publishing houses who wanted my book proposal, who wanted to purchase my book. Guys, listen to the timeline. Listen to the timeline. What was taking me 7 years to get accomplished, I got done in 8 weeks. Why? Because I took ownership of my time. I got clear on what I was going to focus on, and I removed the clutter. And what I realized in making that step and removing the clutter from my to-do list, I realized 3 things. One, the first thing I realized is a third of the things I took off my to-do list, someone else needed to be doing. I needed to disseminate to someone else. The second thing I realized is that literally, as much as it was weighing on me and weighing me down, it literally just wasn't important. I don't even remember what it was. And the third thing I realized is that our to-do list is just a habit. Something comes up, we put it on our to-do list. But the truth of the matter is a third of the things on my to-do list were chronologically out of order. I shouldn't even have been focused on them until May, not December. So when we get clear on what we are focusing on, we live by, and I love this quote by Brene Brown, it allows us to really own what we are going to take responsibility for. Brene Brown says, you either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. I could spend all day on that, but I'm going to be respectful of time. So guys, the second key is own what is authentic to you so that you are clear on what to focus on. The third key to living in your power is, what is your plan? What is your plan? And when I say your plan, I don't mean that 60-page, master plan or that 4 or 5-page executive summary. I mean, literally, what are the 3 most important next steps that you need to make? Because when you get clear, when your perspective is clear and you know what to really lock in on with your vision, when you take ownership of what you've got to focus on, then you're very clear on what the next 3 steps are. But more importantly, you are able to discern when an opportunity is actually a distraction. When an opportunity is a distraction. There are so many amazing opportunities out there. But if you're not clear on your plan, if you're not clear on what you're supposed to be accomplishing, you will spend so much time being busy chasing opportunities that are actually distractions. One of the greatest disservices we can do to ourselves is to become successful in something that we don't even enjoy and really don't even want to do. So when we get clear on our plan, what are those 3 most important next steps? That's when we're able to know what to say yes to, but more importantly, what to say no to. I have clients that say to me all the time, but Sheri, I don't know how to say no. I keep saying yes to all these things and clogging up my schedule. But here's the thing. When you're clear, when you know what you're focused on, it's easy to say no. The reason you're having a challenge saying no is because there's too many things you've said yes to. The 4th key to living in your power is the engagement. The engagement. And this is the most important of all 5 keys, because let me just say, I have a 13-year-old, and my 13-year-old, when she was 6 years old, she started playing lacrosse. And I live in Atlanta, as most of the Shadow Summit team does. And so everything in Atlanta is a 30-40 minute drive. So her first lacrosse game was like, first thing in the morning. And I had to make this 30-40 minute drive. But while we were driving to the field, one of my really close friends called me. And I said, you know what, when I get to the field, I'll take the call and, catch up with her. So we get to the football field. My daughter is out and I'm sitting in the stands. And so I have my Apple headphones on, and that's when they were still corded. So I've got my phone in my lap and I'm watching the game. So I'm watching the game. I'm catching up with my girlfriend. We only talked for maybe about a quarter and a half. So I see the whole game. My daughter wins her first ever lacrosse game. And I am so excited because I know she's going to run and jump in my arms and we're going to celebrate. When my daughter walks off the field, she walks up to me, stops right in front of me and says, "Mommy, I can't believe you were on the phone for my first ever lacrosse game." And she walks to go be with her team. What my daughter taught me in that moment was that my presence was not enough. Presence. My presence was not enough. That I needed to be present. And that's the charge that I give each of you. What adjustments do you need to make to implement? We've got to be present. This idea of multitasking, neuroscientists have proven it's not the truth. Our most productive self is being present in every moment. So what adjustments do you need to make? What opportunities are you not as accomplishing at the highest level? Because your presence is there. Oh yeah, you're on the call, you're on the call, but you're responding to email. You're supposed to be focused on that report, but you're checking your social media. We have to get present. So what are those challenges that you need to remove that are keeping you from being engaged? And the 5th key to living in your power is the reward. What will you do to stay consistent? What will you do? The reality is this. What are the triggers that are keeping you from being consistent? What are the triggers that are keeping you from staying focused? What are the for some of us, it may be social media. Right now, we're working at home. It may be your environment that you're now working in. What are those triggers that are keeping you from being consistent? So when we look at the 5 keys to living in your power, perspective. What is your vision? What does this make possible? Ownership. What are you focused on? What do you need to remove from your to-do list? What do you need to say no to so that you can say yes to what's most important? The wisdom to know what the 3 most important next steps are so that you can get crystal clear when an opportunity is actually a distraction. And then that engagement. We have to be present. We can no longer multitask. to work at our highest self. One of the things that is most critical is when you own your greatness, you don't have to prove your greatness. When you take that for real ownership and get engaged in what's most important and be present in what's most important, that's where the true joy and fulfillment of your work and your personal life integrate. And then the last key is the reward. Is the reward. How are you going to stay consistent? What are the triggers that you need to remove? Now, I know that we had a limited time. So for anybody who wants this full, I do this as a full training. If you would like to get that, it's an audio version of it. Just text my name, Sheri, Sheri, to the number 770-637-0081, and you'll get this full 45-minute training that I do on how to live in your power. So guys, if you don't remember anything else that we shared today, I want you to remember the most important thing is we have to broaden our definition of success. That's how we live in our power. And this has been proven even more in 2020 when we look at all the things we've lost in this year. But we have to also focus on what have we gained? What time have you spent with loved ones that you hadn't spent before? How did this force you to slow down and realize you didn't have to go at 200 miles an hour? You could go at 100 miles an hour and still accomplish the same results. We have to broaden our definition of success. In our society, success has been narrowed down to how many zeros is in our bank account and how many commas are between those zeros. And don't get me wrong, that is my goal as well. That is my focus as well. But my definition of success is not that narrow. My definition of success is broad enough to include 15 years of marriage, to include watching Blue Bloods on Friday night, because that's what my mother loves to do. My definition of success is broad enough to include going to my daughter's lacrosse games and volunteering at her school. It's broad enough to include getting 8 hours of sleep consistently. Yeah, because I was that fool that said I'll sleep when I die. Yeah, that was me. But now I know even my computer has to reboot. I understand the value in that. And so I'll close with this. And I love what Reese Witherspoon says. Many people worry so much about managing their career, but rarely spend half that much energy managing their lives. I want my life, not just my job, to be the best it can be. Guys, when we live in our power, it allows us to truly maximize and experience what I call exponential living. There, Zach, I will throw it back to you.
Wow, Sheri, this is incredible. Thank you so much for this. You know, after a long day of a great conference, and obviously we enjoy and we love all the sessions, but at 6 p.m., this inspirational, incredible talk you gave was a really perfect pick-me-up for everybody. So really, really thank you. It's an incredible presentation that you give. Real quick, we do have a question here in the question box. And the question is, in your definition of success, do you include and overlap your business goals with your personal goals?
Absolutely. When I work with my coaching clients, I say we have to show up as our whole self. So I don't separate work, community, and person. I put it all together and we work through those 5 keys based on our whole self.
Incredible. Wow. I strive to get 8 hours a night, so I'm going to have to take a page from your book. But again, thank you so much, Sheri. And if anybody has questions for Sheri, which I'm sure people will, please bring them to the Slack channel. Those will all get over to Sheri. And I encourage everybody to check out, texting the number that she had suggested and connecting with her further, following her on social media, etc. Thank you again.
Thank you.